Hello again, this is Bill Lindemann with Carrie Sluiter and the Believers Business Center show. And today Carrie is going to talk about her book, Awareness, and it's about her experience with Morgellons disease. This is a disease that almost no one knows about, but because of her book, a lady wrote to her and told her about her positive experiences from reading her book. And I'd like to read, she sent an email recently this month, and I'd like to read it now. Before we start, I'd like to read this email. Hi, Carrie. Wanted to share some recent developments in my fight against Morgellons. I was near my worst pain and lesions were on rampage, me near suicide. For a year or so, I've had it on my mind to get water heater flushed, but many life details of which I won't elaborate kept on hindering the process. I was also determined to go to CEHF conference this year in Texas. Another deadline that was coming up quickly was that second floor tenants were to move on April 1st, so I became determined to perform the flushing. Well, it turned into a very long process. Never saw water so disgusting. By the time I get to Texas, and while on the plane, pain levels were excruciating. But within a day or so, all of a sudden, lesion and pain activity began to decline. There was one other thing, used some leftover Sovereign silver hydrosol out of desperation before I left and used the last of it, so I had none when I got to Texas. It was kind of an experiment to see if going to another environment would help my Morgellons heal at all. In just 4 days, I began to see real glimmers of hope and believe in the water theory wholeheartedly. Being familiar with some MFR's Phase 1 research, and look forward to seeing the Phase 2 when all of a sudden their organization seemed to disappear off the face of the planet. Last week I did a search in the Library of Congress holdings to see if any books on the subject of Morgellons could be found. And your book, Awareness, and a book by Dr. David Conroy came up. I have not read yours all the way through yet, but took quick note of your WHWS findings. It is really a confirmation in my eyes that regular maintenance of these two are mandatory to get Morgellons out of your system. From the beginning, I've always observed it in the water, was able to grow them, and even have found them in preserves I've made and water kefir. As sad as I am seeing more and more, it's sad that I am seeing more and more people with the skin issues. I'm going to keep up my part to bring awareness of Morgellons. I continue to use Sovereign Silver on skin after washing with HibiCleanse, and a shower filter I recommend is made by Sprite. I need to change mine about once a month. Something else to note is water pipeline is being replaced on my street and the water lines are seasonably flushed. I believe both of these can reintroduce Morgellon entities back into the water systems. In the past, I have also a correlation with an increase of symptoms. Can't wait to finish reading your book. Sincerely, Mary Piano. You'll have to explain some of the details of this, but this sounds very encouraging.
We had talked last week about me receiving contacts, confirmations from people who are reading my books or finding me online. And this was one lady in particular who had contacted me and had asked about the Morgellons. She
Yes,
found that she found my book and called me and talked to me lengthy on the phone, asking for answers. And she was really struggling and suffering. Her family, she was scared for her family and didn't know how to handle it. So I had talked to her, and this was approximately 3 or 4 months ago.
Yes.
So then I get this email from her just a week or so ago, and she's gone to Texas and sends me this email that she's finding that the things I had told her on the phone about the water heater and checking your water heaters. And the reason this is so important, Bill, is, and the reason I wanted to talk about this tonight is because there are a lot of people who are suffering, and some people may have this and not even realize that that's what they have. The water heater testings that she had mentioned, that she talked about, I want to read a little bit out of a chapter in my
Sure.
book, chapter
Okay.
4. Now, remember, this is a reminder too, that I had dealt with for almost 2 years terrible skin disorder, things, fibers coming out of my skin. This stuff ripped my world apart. I was desperate. I was, if I had been a weak person, I could have considered suicide. It destroys your whole world, your thinking pattern. You can't focus. People lose their jobs when they get this disease. They can't stay on track, and it really messes with your whole world. So this was after a long period of time where I had my family just ripped apart. My husband and everyone in my family thinking I was crazy. I was going to doctors. They're telling me it was delusional, but yet they describe them under a microscope. So I was the one that was telling the doctors, "You're crazier than I am if you could describe my delusion."
Sure.
And give me a description of what it looks like under a microscope. You're the one that's nuts. So I refused to accept what they were telling me and what the medical professionals were telling me. There was no answers. This was back in 1991 and 92, okay, 92, 93, and 94 that I was dealing with this disease. And at that time, Morgellons was not heard of. We didn't have internet. You couldn't go on a search and search out to see if other people had it. All I had to go by was my own search for the answers. So this is chapter 4, and this chapter is titled, Finding the Source Gave Me New Hope. A major turn took place in August of 1992, one Saturday morning when I made a pot of coffee and started making breakfast. I noticed the coffee pot dripping extremely slow, so I mentally added cleaning the coffee pot to my list of cleaning chores for the day. I'm going to skip down. So I started cleaning the house, and I mentally noted that the coffee pot was dripping real slow. So as I went about my day, now I'm going to go back because this was after 2 years of people hearing, "Look at this, what is it?" And me telling people I had something in my skin. Something was wrong. They didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to admit to it. So people were tired of hearing about it. So here's where the story goes from there. I started cleaning the house. By the time I got to my coffee pot and started cleaning it, and I took the tap off. It says, when I started cleaning the kitchen, as I began removing things from the counters to clean them, I remembered I needed to run vinegar through the coffee pot. I removed the pot from the base, unscrewed the water spew. I tapped it in the sink a few times, and out came a wad of those neon red and blue fibers. They were actually in the little drip spew that your coffee comes through. Now, I have been searching and going to doctors and looking for where this stuff came from. The same stuff was coming out of my skin, literally. I could put lotion on, or oil on my hands and go like this, Bill, and those fibers would come out like they were alive and they would move around. Now, this is an extreme case of Morgellons disease, and I had it really bad. Now, still to this day, they are still saying, the government, the Center of Disease Control, is still saying they don't know the causative agent. Causative agent being, where did it come from? They're still saying there's no answers. People are getting healed with medications, but you eliminate the cause, and you don't need the medications.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that are struggling and suffering, even considering suicide, because this stuff will drive you crazy. It will rip your world apart. So, it says, out came the red, white, and blue fibers. Oh my God, it's in the water. Now, this was after a long time of searching. I said out loud as I stood there just looking at it, almost instantly, every part of my body from inside out was actually trembling. There was a part of me that wanted to run and tell my husband I found it, while another part of me didn't want to tell him at all. We were having such a good day that I didn't want to start another uproar or deal with another incident anymore and I knew he would. I stood there lost in thought for a while. What should I do, and how should I handle this new information? I carefully wrapped them in a paper towel and then placed them inside of a Ziploc bag. I took them into my dressing room and put them in the vanity drawer. I tried to focus back on the cleaning chores, but it was very difficult with my mind now totally consumed with this new finding. I started feeling as if my mind was trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts and my stomach was turning flips. Before I could finish one thought, another one consumed me. What do I do? I've been cooking with this stuff, I thought. Oh my God, I've been fixing my baby's bottle with it. With that thought, my stomach did another flip and I began to feel sick. Getting upset is not going to help, I told myself. I have to calm down and think of and not think of the negative side. This could be a good thing. Maybe now it can be put to rest. So I began laying out a plan of action. And I'm not going to read anymore because
Okay.
I want to talk about this.
Sure.
This was a very traumatic experience. People have no idea if they haven't dealt with Morgellons firsthand. But the people who are suffering, there's hundreds of thousands of people in our country and in other countries that are suffering from this disease, and they're still telling them there's no cure. I found this, and like I said, 1992, when I found the substance in my water heater that was coming out of in my water in my coffee pot. I searched and took my water heater, and the story in this book, it tells all the details of my struggles, my challenges, my research material, even the documents that I had of my water heater testing is in this book. I went and had my water heater tested, and they found that there was 98%, the test is in this book, 98% contaminants. And they thought indicated that it was a fiberglass or asbestos or fiber substance from inside of the water heater, and it wasn't. It was the substance of Morgellons disease. And it was, I believe, a parasite contamination. Because when I did parasite detoxes after I started researching and found answers at later on in life, they were gone. So my search for this is the story and more in the awareness book in Morgellons tells the story. I didn't have answers then when I was living it back in 1992. I never got any answers.
Right.
The doctors, even when I took them the lab test that proved that there was something there that it said unidentifiable fibrous substances that they even found in skin scrapings, where they would take and cut out a piece of my skin and test it. They would find the fibers in there, but they just said they were unidentifiable. The government, or the Center of Disease Control, and the researchers of Morgellons disease have actually had forensic testing done on those fibers. And the forensic scientists from Tulsa, Oklahoma police station, forensic reports states that this is some freaky substance, and it's not man-made, and it's not of any bioproduct. And that's from our federal, from our research labs. Now, another thing too is with this the lady's response to me in email. Going back to that, the scientist that was researching that, and their papers, their research materials that I found in 2008 when I stepped up to write this book to help other people that were suffering because they weren't getting answers. I spoke with him via email and told him that I believed I had some answers that I could maybe help them because I got rid of it. I'm one of very few, very few that can stand up and say, I never looked back. I never got it back. It was gone. My family was healed. I was healed. So I didn't have to deal with it anymore. I let it go and put it behind me. But there's people today that are still doing the colloidal silvers, the medications. They're still going to doctors. They still have side effects if they haven't cured and cleared out the illness itself and eliminated the source. So when I had my water heater tested, I moved from my home. She indicated that she went to a different state. She left her home for a while, and it got better. When I moved away from my house, I was gone for a few months, and I was also learning how to pray. I told you before, I
Sure.
found God in desperation.
Sure.
This disease had me on a search for answers, and I couldn't find them. I found answers in the Bible. I found hope. I found strength. I found prayer was working. And one day, all of a sudden, I looked down and they were gone. So, and the story is told out, is laid out pretty good in the book with
Yes.
all the torment, the torture. It's a roller coaster ride. But in the end, I found answers, and I still stand and say, I was healed from Morgellons disease. My family was healed, and it upsets me that I still can go on the internet, and
Right,
people like this
right.
are contacting me saying they're still not showing the phase 2 of their water heater tests. Because in 2008, when I wrote this book, on the testing that was being shown for
Yes.
Morgellons research, they were testing water heaters.
Okay.
Now, mine was 1992,
Right.
in 1992. In 2008, they're finally going to the water heaters. So they're tracking it. It's obviously showing up. They had pictures of the same thing I described
Right.
in 1992 that I was telling my doctors that I was seeing coming out of my skin and saw in my water. So when I saw those water heater tests results coming up, of phase 1 testing of water heaters from the Morgellons victims, which was how they put it at
Sure.
the Morgellons Research Foundation, and they turn around and they said they were all excited because they were going for grants and more funding to do a phase 2. Phase 2 should have confirmed whether it really was a culprit or a causative agent. They still, to this day, as far as I know, do not have anything out there that shows the phase 2 testing ever got done or was ever solidified. And the phase 1, I printed it out off of the internet. I have it. It's pictures of every fiber that I said came out of my skin in 1992. There's pictures of it. I described them to my doctors. My doctors described them in their reports.
Yes. Yes.
So this isn't something I made up because I saw their pictures. This was, 16 years later. But my point is, they still, as far as I know, have not done the phase 2. Why would they not do a phase 2 if they found matching substance in the water heaters of the Morgellons victims that matched the fiber substance that was coming out of their skin and out of their bodies? That these people are torn up, their body, they're sores from head to toe.
I've done some, you've shown me some documentation on the disease, and I've studied it a little. It's horrible.
Yeah, and they have
And
pictures of
you
it.
just about lost your mind.
I did. It's a
just-
horrible disease.
And nobody believes you,
No.
you know. They think it's your imagination. That's the
Yeah.
worst part,
Yep,
you know. They
And
won't
it-
even accept it.
right.
They think it's your mind.
Yeah, and people that you think love you or love you, they will just avoid you. Some of the worst things that I experienced was, my family, they would see the stuff come out of my skin. I would show it to them. They'd sit there and look at it. Wow, that is just crazy. And 2 days later, they're talking to somebody else saying, I think it's her nerves. You know what? I didn't have a nerve problem before the stuff started coming out of my body.
Yeah.
I was perfectly fine before I got this stuff, and I started seeing things coming out of my skin and in my skin, and started looking in the mirror, seeing a face that, a body that
Wow.
never had blemishes, and all of a sudden, I could relate to Job. I was sores from head to toe. My hair was falling out. It was all fuzzy and frizzy where those things would come out in your hair, and they were so sharp and wiry. They're like a angel hair or something. So they're real sharp fibers,
yeah.
and they would spin around and they'd get twisted, and of course, they're also like there's static electricity in them. When they came out of my skin, they would be like, they were full of static electricity. But they were alive parasites, I believe. I believe with everything in me, and every bit of my research says I'm right. I'm not the scientist. I'm not going to go against them and say they're all lying and they're wrong, because I don't have the ability and the lab ability,
Sure.
scientific ability to test it myself. But I have common sense, I have logic, and I have God, and I have proof that I was healed because I did, I treated them as if it was a parasite,
Well,
and
you were,
did a detox.
thank God you were healed completely.
That's
you know,
right, and
just-
I believe God had something to do with that too,
Yes,
of course.
yes,
I won't
yeah.
take credit away
Sure.
from him.
Sure.
But I also believe that God allowed me to experience this, because I asked him why later. I asked him, why God? Why me? Well, now you've experienced it. You've been healed. You found it, because I'm a digger. I'm a dig for answers.
Sure,
I don't
sure,
quit.
sure.
And God knew that, but I believe He allowed me to go through that so that I could now help others, or guide them to answers and tell them don't quit. If this one girl, this one person got healing, which I've had at least 20, 30 people who have contacted me, they have similar stories. One of them was a twin that her sister was actually a lawyer, and she couldn't work within a year of having Morgellons disease. And her family, even her twin sister, is going, she's lost her mind. She's lost her mind. Well, I kind of see something there, but, how do I know what it is if it's really her mind? And, the family doesn't even believe it. They don't want to believe it. And when you all of a sudden start being treated like that, and you've got this stuff coming out of your skin, you're embarrassed to go to work, your mind is on, it's preoccupied.
They treat you like a leper, basically.
Exactly. And I was. I mean, I was shunned by people. Everyone in my family was talking about how terrible Carrie was doing, and what a mess she is. Oh my gosh, well, I don't know what's going on with her. But they saw it. They saw it. And they didn't fight for me, and that disappointed me. It broke my heart, that I would hear them say things that they knew me. I was a strong person prior to that day that I broke out with those sores on my fingertips. Prior to that day, they didn't see a weak moment in my life. I was a businesswoman. I was an entrepreneur.
Right.
I was proud. I was, I always did my hair and always look good. I mean, I would do my best to dress well, even when I was a janitorial from the time I was 16, 17 years old. I started my own company, still have it today. And, I knew that I always took care of myself.
Sure.
I was proud and confident. I treated people right and always did the right thing. So this blew me out of the water when I got that disease that day.
What's so sad is this
overnight.
lady had to go, after all these years, she had to go to the Library of Congress to find out some information and found your book.
Right.
And that's like the last place you would ever have to look. That's the only place that has a copy of every book published.
Right.
It's sad, I mean, you would think the Center for Disease Control could take some ownership of
They
this.
need to give these people answers. They're still getting money for research that
Sure.
doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I believe they have answers. I believe that they're just keeping them from it. Well, a lot of it, why would you give an answer and say, well, we have it figured out now? You lose a lot of funds. Somebody's going out of a job.
Yeah.
I mean, and not saying that they're hiding it for that purpose, but it makes me wonder. Because I know that if anybody came to me with Morgellons disease right now today, the chances are they could get it healed and be done with it. And does it really matter where it came from or all the scientific side of it? What matters is the people get their life and their health back and regain family. That's what matters. And that's what upsets me, is because there's so many that are not finding answers that they need to be able to find. So they can find my books. They can find me on the Believers Business Center at believersbc.com. And
We're going to put this on YouTube tonight, and we're going to have a link to the book that you can find the book.
right.
In fact, we started the program with a picture of your two books, and this is one of them.
Well,
Yes.
several people that read the book had and ordered the book contacted me afterwards and thanked me for it. It was a lot of them were family members who now understand and believe and support them for answers. So that was a big thing. And the attorney actually came out of a nursing home and went back to being a lawyer. And her sister sent me a letter thanking me for helping her, because it got her to believe and go fight for her sister. And she had ended up in a nursing home.
Yeah, I mean,
So she went and got her out of the
that's
nursing home.
scary. That is
because
really
this book
scary.
convinced her
Yes.
that her sister wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
And she helped her find her answers. The girl got healed, and that's a wonderful thing. And that's just a couple of the stories out of several that I'd be willing to share.
Sure, yeah.
So I just want people to know that there are answers for any disease. And if you can't find the answers from the world, you can always remember, too, that God healed us all on the cross. When I had Morgellons in 1992, I hadn't really known God then. I didn't really know Jesus. But when I found him, he also healed us on the cross, and he gave us all things, you know. So be sure that you turn it over to God as well. If you have any illnesses, there's a lot of them that are linked to the Morgellons disease. The anxiety and brain fog, chronic fatigue, allergies, food allergies, I had them all. Migraine headaches, just bipolar diseases of the skin, all of them fall under the same categories and have a lot of similarities to the Morgellons disease. So remember that.
So this is obviously, you turned to writing because of this, didn't you?
Yes, this is what caused me to start writing, or when I found God and found answers.
Right, right.
It's like the world is suffering and they don't need to.
Yeah.
One place or the other, there are answers, and we shouldn't stay where we're at. We don't have to stay trapped in illness or lack of having God in our life.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful testimony to your persistence and your helping other people. And I don't think this story is finished yet. I think
it's only just begun, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah. Obviously, there are a lot more people that need the information that you have in this book.
Yeah. Anyone who is struggling, feel free to email me, and I'll get back with you and talk to you in any way I can to try to help or direct you to some answers.
Yeah, and, you know, it's sad because the Center for Disease Control should be, you know, the ball is in their court, and they're not doing anything. They're taking money, but doing nothing about it.
And they're coming up with remedies to heal the symptoms. And if you don't get rid of the cause or the culprit, you don't get rid of the root. I mean, you can just keep treating the parasite, and it'll get better. It's kind of like putting salve on and then turn around and re-wound it, you know, re-injure it. It's the same difference, and it just isn't going to go away completely.
Yeah.
But they can get healing from this disease. And I believe there's more answers out there than what the world is telling people.
Right, right.
I really do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that's explained in the book. There's a lot of natural health things that I found that really helped me, not only to get rid of the Morgellons disease, but in the end to also gain a better health all around. The things I never knew before, never thought about the importance of. So I learned a lot, and I shared it. So.
Well, you know, when I put this up on YouTube, I'm gonna include some links to some Morgellons videos, because you mentioned there are some that actually show these parasites.
Right. Randy Wymore was on Unexplained Mysteries.
Okay, all right.
With Morgellons
right,
disease.
yeah.
Last September, I believe it was, September 14th or 17th, it aired on Unsolved Mysteries.
Right. After you've already solved the mystery yourself.
I wrote the book in 2008.
They didn't contact you.
Right.
You wonder what kind of research.
And their
they're
lab
doing.
test matched mine on the water
Yeah,
heaters.
sure.
You know, 16 years later.
Yeah.
16 years apart, and they matched. And they haven't done the phase 2. They have never shown those tests. And now if you click on that website, on that link for the water heater test results, it says it's not available. Why not?
Yeah.
Why? They
Yeah.
just buried it?
Right, yeah, that's
Okay.
scary.
Yeah, there's a lot more to this, and we could do a 2-hour show.
Well,
but
thanks for
we've,
sharing this
I
story,
think we're out
Carrie.
of time, so.
Yeah, this is Bill Lindemann and Carrie Sluiter for the Believers Business Center show. And don't forget to check her books, Awakening, and the other one is?
Awareness and Living the
Awareness
Promises.
And Living the Promises.
You can find those through believersbc.com.
Right. And they came out of your suffering. I mean,